My name is Troy Balthazar. I'm with the Great Plains ADA Center, and today we're here on the beautiful campus of the University of Missouri to talk about and demonstrate how to survey a ramp for ADA compliance. What does ADA compliance mean? It means that it meets the 2010 standards for accessible design, which have been developed and adopted by the Access Board and the Department of Justice, respectively. There's a number of tools we're going to be using to survey the ramp today, and what we'll see is the use of a tape measure, use of a digital level, use of a manual level, and a couple other tools to make your survey job a little easier. Ramps are made up of two components: ramp runs and ramp landings. Okay, ramp runs are obviously the sloped runs that people use to navigate the ramp. Landings are the flat surfaces at the top and bottom that a person reaches when they reach the termination of a ramp run. One of the primary issues for a compliant ramp run is the degree at which it slopes, how steep it is. When we refer to slope, what we're talking about is a ratio of rise over run. So how much does a ramp slope rise over a period of how far it runs? So in general, the maximum slope for a ramp is 1 to 12. That means when it rises 1 inch, it goes out and covers a distance of 12 inches over that 1 inch rise. That's what creates your 1 to 12 slope. Digital levels are very convenient for measuring slope. They give you the slope in a number of different ways. I tend to use percentages, and when we talk about that 1 to 12 slope, basically any slope that is between 1 to 20 up to a maximum of 1 to 12 is required to have handrails and other ramp features. It's considered a ramp. So it's as simple as taking the digital level and getting a reading between, in this case, 5% and 8.33%. If it's in that reading, it's compliant. Okay? If it's more than 8.33%, then you're out of compliance for slope. You want to take this measurement at several points over the ramp to see if there's any severe changes. You can also measure it with the slope with a standard 4-foot level and a 4-inch block of some sort. What you want to do is have your 4-foot level positioned on top of that to find out where that bubble is. If the bubble's right in the middle, you're right on your slope, 1 to 12. If your bubble moves downhill toward the downhill side, in this case, you're looking at a ramp that's out of compliance. And if the bubble's moving uphill, you're looking at a ramp that's in compliance. When you get down to the bottom of the ramp, or the top of the ramp, you have a landing. That landing needs to be level, meaning that it does not slope more than 1 to 48 in any direction. Also, another thing to remember about landings, you don't want to have changes in level, and you can also, if you have door clearances, you can overlap those door clearances with the landing to save space. That's perfectly legitimate. Ramp landings need to be as wide as the ramp that it serves. The minimum width of a ramp run is going to be 36 inches. And where do you measure that? You measure that from the inside of the handrails. So you come across and make sure you got 36 inches minimum to be compliant with the 2010 standards. So again, we've got landings being as wide as the ramp they serve. They also need to be 5 feet long. That's the requirement under the 2010 standards. Now, the dimension is a little different when ramps turn or do a switchback as this one does. You need to have a 5x5 landing at the top. It doesn't matter the width of the ramp. The requirement is for 5x5 minimum dimension here at the top, making sure that space is available for people to turn and make the next ramp run, whichever direction it may go. Ramps that rise more than 6 inches need to have handrails on both sides of ramp runs. Those that rise less than 6 inches, they don't require handrails. But if it does rise more than 6 inches, we have to have compliant handrails per the 2010 standards. Another crucial issue with ramps is that on the inside of switchback or dogleg ramps, ramps that turn, the inside handrail needs to be continuous. The outside handrail can end with its regular extensions, but the inside handrail needs to be continuous at all times. Handrails are required to be spaced away so a person can use them with their hand, get it in there. They need to be 1.5 inch from the nearest obstruction on the side. 1.5 inch minimum height if you've got something underneath holding it up, a horizontal projection. This distance needs to be 1.5 inches minimum. Another issue with handrails, at the bottoms and the tops of ramp runs, handrails are expected to extend at least 12 inches beyond the top of that run. They extend, you see this one changes direction just a touch here. It's coming up the slope and then it goes to parallel with the ground. That 12 inches needs to be parallel with the ground and returned to either the ground surface, a side element, or something else to return it so it's not just sticking out as a protruding object. Ramps also require edge protection in almost all circumstances. There's two ways to go about doing edge protection. One is demonstrated here. One of the requirements under the 2010 standards is that a 4-inch sphere not be able to pass through here, your level of your edge protection. Clearly this one goes to the ground. But basically, if you had a bar coming along here to provide edge protection or some other means, it can't be any higher. It needs to be less than 4 inches off the ground. The second option for edge protection is to extend this surface out 12 inches beyond the handrail. And where do you measure that? You measure it from the inside of the handrail 12 inches out. Now we're discussing floor and ground surfaces of ramps. The requirement for ramps is that they be firm, stable, and slip resistant. And that's a requirement for the ramp runs themselves. There's a number of ways to get firm and stable. Slip resistant, there are certain products out there that you can paint on that creates that type of surface. Concrete sort of lends itself to it, the standard already. And there's a number of other ways to go about creating a non-slip surface, but that's absolutely required on any ramp run.